Ja, välkomna tillbaka, and we will be switching language to English and welcoming Anders Weilandt. Please welcome Anders.
Thank you very much, Mattias. Thank you.
You are the CEO of medicine company Chordate Medical. Can you give us just a brief introduction?
Absolutely. Chordate is based on an innovation from Karolinska Institute, has been developing a drug-free treatment for first rhinitis and now migraine since 15 years now. This is a special case that I will tell about. This is an exit case. We're building this company to be sold.
We are looking forward to your presentation. Please go ahead, and I will be back in approximately 20 minutes for the Q&A.
Thank you. All right. Yes, and hi and welcome everyone to this presentation of Chordate Medical. We are a listed company on Nasdaq First North in Stockholm, and you see the ticker on the screen. Migraine is our focus. Of course, a lot of migraine patients have help from very competent drugs, but these drugs also have a backside. They can fade in effect and you need to switch to a new drug, and that's always a challenge. The side effects can also be or become unbearable over time. There are groups of patients that are not suitable for migraine drugs, such as women that are pregnant or would like to become pregnant. And then the big question is, what do you do then? So our product, Osilia, is meant to serve as a non-drug alternative for the over 150 up to 170 million patients that suffers from chronic migraine. But first, I should start with the focus of this presentation today, and that are the two very late pieces of news that we have had the fortune to be able to tell the market. The most important one is the lower one there, that we have now a board resolution that awarded the mandate for a company called Partner International. This is an M&A advisory expert group, and I will tell more about them. This means that we now embark on the final step in our strategy, and that is to solve the last issue of selling the business for the benefit of our shareholders. The other one on the top came yesterday. For us, a little bit of a surprise. You never know when these things are happening. But the Saudi competent authority, SFDA, actually approved Osilia for the migraine market in Saudi Arabia. This is a great thing for us, and this means that we now can follow up our early successes with the rhinitis market in Saudi, with also introducing the migraine in the same area. So these are the two focus points for this presentation, but I will go through the entire presentation of the company and the product and the markets. So back to migraine. What is it? Well, I guess almost everybody have a notion of what migraine is. A lot of us have had or has migraine, so we know perfectly well what it is. When we talk about the two groups, the episodic migraine, which is about 15% of any given population, and then the specific group of about 2% that has chronic migraine, that's a lot of people, okay, when you add them up. And it's evenly spread approximately around the globe also. So in short, 1 out of 7 suffers from any type of migraine, episodic or chronic. About around 2% from chronic migraine. Chronic migraine means that you have demonstrated at least 15 days of headache per month, whereof 8 episodes of migraine. So all of us that knows what this entails can understand that that is a pretty severe condition. It is also so that this is a women's health problem. 2 out of 3 migraine patients are women, and it's also expensive. There are recent health economic studies from Norway and Sweden that suggests that around 11,000 euros per year and patient of chronic migraineurs would be the cost to society in Sweden. This is divided to 80% productivity loss or absenteeism from work, and 20% is care and medication. So, our solution, Oscilia Migraine, what is that? Well, in short, it is very safe, and it's also a preventive treatment for chronic migraine, meaning that you take this treatment periodically and it lowers your burden of both headache days and migraine episodes. It's drug-free and it's also cost-effective. It is a clinical-based procedure. It has to be done at the clinic by registered healthcare workers, but it's usually done by a trained nurse. That means that the process to the healthcare institution is rather low compared to using, for instance, a specialist neurologist to do it. So a little bit about how it does work, what is actually going on here. It is a relatively simple procedure. It takes about 15 minutes to learn to do this for a healthcare professional. It's based on the balloon catheter, and you place the small balloon on the bottom of the nasal cavity on one side at a time. And once you learn to do this correctly, which is relatively easy, you also learn to affix this with this head band for comfort for the patient. And when you're done, you just press start on the machine and the machine does the rest. So now the machine runs for 10 minutes on each side and prompts you to switch over to the other nostril when it's done in the first period. After a certain base pressure of this balloon is pumped up to a regulated pressure, then the machine will generate a sinus wave of pressure. So there is a vibration of a low frequency in the balloon that stimulates the very rich nerve endings in the nose, as well as 4 or more very important neurocenters in the nose or surrounding the nose. This stimulation causes a change of the behavior of the autonomic nervous system, and you have a neuromodulation as a result that lasts for a certain period of time after the treatment. That period of time is highly individual and changes between patients, but approximately the average need is to come back for treatment around 4 times a year in order to keep a good level and lower your problems. So that is the technology. Always you have to prove what you're doing in life science, and certainly so also in medtech. So what is our proof? Well, we of course have a library of already conducted studies. The most important one in our pipeline is the PM007 that is now submitted for publication, and we're still waiting for the approval for publication. This is submitted to the most prominent scientific publication in this field, and they have a very, very thorough process. It's also not transparent, so we don't know where they are, but everything is done. We're right now just waiting for the go. We also have in the pipeline 2 other migraine studies, 009 and 010. 2 very important and interesting studies. They are both open label, so we can read the results all the time. The 009 is a very specific pilot study for those patients that do not show response to the most prominent and actually also most expensive drug alternative, which is the CGRP pathway. Very prominent drugs, also very costly, but about 30-40% of the patients that try this comes out on the other end with no response. And we are interested to see if Oscilia has the ability to change the situation for these patients. The 010 study is what's called a post-market surveillance study. We are obliged to do that from regulatory point of view, but we also have a lot to learn from that study because that's a very long follow-up time of a year. And this will give us vital information on the efficacy, but also, and most importantly, the treatment regime that you can see as a statistic result of a larger population group. There are 200 in this case, and over a long time. So we're looking forward to that. That study is quite well ahead in the plan. And we just recently, a month ago, published the first results from a review of the study data, and it looks very good. That was the message. So we'll see. It's a long study, and we continue to follow the results. A deeper dive into the pivotal PM007 study, which actually to us was a huge success. It surpassed our expectations, and it now points to that we have the same results and response or better than any other drug-based alternatives. So this actually creates a position where Osilia becomes a true alternative. You can almost always choose it if you see a need to do so. So the sort of peak results in this was that we lowered the number of headache days with up to 4.3 days out of the minimum 15, and you can understand that that's a relatively important reduction of days with headache. But even more stunning, and this was the biggest surprise, that we lowered the number of days with migraine episodes with 4.9 on the peak in the data. And that is then to be compared with the minimum of 8 days with migraine episodes. So that's a really good improvement. So we have since little over a year now based our rollout of the migraine indication and the marketing and recruiting new sites based on this study already. So it's really working well for us to have this result as a strong support and platform to work from. A little bit about the market. Where are we going and why? But first, let's look at the sort of large number of money that's involved in the migraine medication market. And this is a late review from this spring from Nature Reviews. And you can here see the drug sales that are preventive drugs, not the acute drugs, the preventive drugs on the global market. And it's projecting a quite stunning growth. Most importantly here is the pink sections here, which represent the alternative Botox. It's the same type of Botox that's used for anesthetic work. It's also sold by the same company. But these are the numbers for treatments here, not the aesthetic side. So you can see that Botox is quite dominant. And why is Botox so important to us? Well, it is also a clinically based procedure. And it's also a clinical based procedure that you need to come in for about 4 times a year. It takes the same amount of time, about half an hour in and out the door. However, it should be performed by a neurospecialist that is much more costly than a registered nurse, of course. When you compare, which you shouldn't, but if you compare data from studies, you can see an indication of that our response is about 2 times better to this patient group compared to Botox. Osilia has no adverse events registered or very few that are unrelated. It's basically a very safe procedure, whereas Botox has a series of very well-known side effects that you have to live through. They are short-lived, but they can be sometimes cumbersome. Stiff neck, headache, actually migraine. That is the result for a good number of patients as a side effects profile. We are priced much less than the Botox also, so we have an advantage in that sense. And Ocelia doesn't entail any injection. The Botox injections are patterns starting at approximately 32 injections in your face, head, neck, maybe shoulders, up to a little over 40 injection sites, different programs. So to endure this procedure with a small balloon in your nose is compared to up to 40 injections 4 times a year. So you can understand that we use Botox as a benchmark because it's very comparable and actually makes us, that are an almost non-existent little company from Sweden, able to compare our products and procedures with a huge global company that sells Botox. So why should you invest in Chordate? Well, we have since now 5 years communicated a very clear 5-step plan. This is our strategy plan. At the base we have a proper innovation and good R&D, producing good profitable products that are protected by IPR, patents, brand names, etc. That is done. We are building scientific evidence and we are still building on it, but we're quite far ahead in it, so it's in progress. And the biggest focus that we've been doing for the last year now is proof of concept, where we do that in certain markets. And now finally we are at step 5, which is exit. We build our proof of concept in some few selected markets that you can see here. We also have some regulatory progress in some areas. And the way we build this is by prominent clinics, which we spread in these markets, and you can see how they are growing in various markets. We don't necessarily go after the big volume markets, we go where we think we can have penetration. In order now to do the 5th step, we have announced today, this morning, that we have assigned a M&A advisor group placed in 4 offices around the world, Partner International. Long experience from very good work, gets fantastic reviews from their customers and clients. And we think they are a great fit for us, someone that can work with us during this very difficult path of trying to find a good buyer for the business. So the focus here is, of course, then very simple. We continue to build the proof of concept. We will execute the final step in the strategy, which means exit. And we'll, of course, continue to build our network of partners, strategic partners. So that was my presentation for now. So, Matthias.
Thank you so much, Anders Weilandt. So a lot of work now closing up to the end point.
Yes.
What goes through your mind, or maybe emotions rather?
Well, I mean, it's of course a long journey. It has been a long journey. But we have been very comfortable with the fact that we decided on this strategy already 2019 and communicated at the same time. This means that we have been able to be transparent to our shareholders and other interestees of what we're doing, even if it is admittedly a long process, save for 2 years or 2.5 years of standstill during the COVID period, of course. We shouldn't forget that. So it's to me, it's a great satisfaction, but also an excitement to be at the final step. Well, I mean, the exit process is going to be relatively time-consuming. It's not going to be straightforward or easy by any means, but it's a great feeling to finally be at this point.
Okay, so instead of visiting laboratories, it will be lawyer offices and so on.
Hopefully a minimum of that, but yes, that is included, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we focus on the exit, is it a partner that will, I mean, kind of is it a partner within the field of migraine, or is it more like a medtech company, or is it more of a distributor?
I guess your guess is as good as mine. And we are quite agnostic to who the best buyer could be that pays the most. But it's somewhere in the areas where you talked about. I would add, beside the two obvious segments of the pharma industry and the medtech industry, medtech being involved in neuromodulation, for instance, that is the same technology. But it could also be a portfolio building structure that builds up a product portfolio. It could very well be a company or outfit that we are unaware of somewhere on this earth. I mean, we do not really point our advisors in any specific direction. That's their job, which they are good at, evidently, to calm the market for people with the strategic thinking that see a reason to invest in this kind of very clear-cut specific technology to add to a probably already existing portfolio.
Mm-hmm. I guess your IPs and your portfolio is extremely important. I mean, that's the key here.
Yeah.
How are you working on still open markets and so forth to cover this, and how waterproof would you say that your patents are?
There are no waterproof patents in my experience. Patents' value are only measured on your ability to defend them. That is the ugly truth. But our patents are good, I can say that much. We do not feel that we need to spread ourselves thinner in the market proof building, in the proof of concept building. We feel that we have markets now, our few focus markets, that we rather show a deep penetration in with measurable results in market shares or effect in the market than trying to open other geographies. So we don't believe that the buyer of this nature needs to see map coverage, but they like to see, we believe, that even though we have a very, very small, almost non-existing sales muscle, that we have still been able to penetrate deep into getting happy clinics with happy physicians and happy patients, the most important thing. The patients that come back repeatedly, and even though it's narrow, a business that grows sideways. That, I think, is the proof that we're still building on, and this is what they like to see. We believe that they, of course, have their own muscle that will do the rest, and that they just need substance for their calculation, basically.
As an investor, when you look at your case, I mean, it looks very good. You're close to doing exit. But can you give any hint on how should we calculate on the potential worth here?
It has to be based on the actual market volume, the actual fundamentals in a value calculation. It has, unfortunately, not too much to do with sort of the market cap on a certain stock list. But how many patients do you have as a base? What is the potential market share of the total base in the hands of a global portal company handling the technology? Because that's the value that the buyer will see, and hence would be somewhat of a value on what they are prepared to pay to get their hands on this technology. So it actually goes from outside in rather from inside out. A good document is placed on our website. It's an initial analysis by the company Calcul that we also post on our website. That is 40, 50 pages document that I can recommend if you like to see an independent understanding of how to structure your idea about the value.
Yeah, that's a equity analyst firm.
Yes,
Based
correct.
in Stockholm, or in Sweden anyway. Okay, so, but what can you say regarding, let's say, the technology? How will the deal, the exit be done? Do you expect to be bought 100% of your stocks, or how will it, a bid, or how will it be?
Well, that remains to be seen. It depends on the bidder. But the idea is at the end, provide the shareholders with an ample return on their investment. And the way we can do that are a multitude of arrangements of different nature. It depends on the process. So we have to come back to that.
And so if I use the same last question with you as other companies, it becomes much more explosive when I ask it to you. Why should I invest in Chordate Medical?
You should invest because this is a very clear, transparent strategy. You have noted that we have delivered on all 5 steps or are about to deliver on them, and that we now also are opening up the last step in the strategy. So you can have a relatively good projection of what's coming next. That is why you should invest.
Thank you, Anders Weilandt, CEO of Chordate Medical.
Thank you very much.
Och med det tar vi ungefär 7 minuters paus, så är vi tillbaka 11:50. Men sista bolaget ut i dagens aktieportföljen live, och det är DVO Technology. Mycket välkomna då.